Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. It is Friday, January 5th here. Ari, first off, how you doing? Obviously, heading into the final weekend, as we know, we've been talking about of the NFL season. It's kind of weird, this NFL season flew by. We were just, talking about getting so excited, 18 weeks of football, and now here we are. The last weekend is upon us. So, how you doing as we getting ready for this big weekend?
Yeah, I'm doing well, like you said. Last regular season weekend of football, and then we get into playoffs. A lot of college basketball, NBA, so a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, obviously, we have a lot of college basketball now. Getting more into the college basketball Saturdays, with the full days, plenty of games. So I will probably have a separate card just for college basketball itself tomorrow. But we're gonna do a quick recap of how we did yesterday, and I don't even want to put mine up on the screen because it's just ugly once again. Utah, thanks for not showing up. The one time ASU wants to finally show up offensively, of course, it's when I fade them a one for the one time because obviously Utah didn't even get the win. I even was talking about the first half, and ASU was hitting everything, and it was just the one time where this ASU team was hitting everything, and Utah just couldn't guard. Jose Perez obviously led with 26, led the team, so that was just a great team game for that ASU offense. For the first time, we finally have seen them score more than I think 70 points on the season, and it's just a tough look there. And then Washington State, like I said, they couldn't hit a three almost all of the first half, and they were down by 3, and they came back and won, but they only won by 7. So but like I said, if 2 of those threes go in the first half, well, we obviously covered that 10.5 point spread. So it's just one of them is these kids can't shoot it, and for ASU, their offense finally showed up after almost a month and a half into the damn season. Thanks a lot, Bobby Hurley. I mean, you finally showed up, and just a tough day. It. I can't even. I'm just shocked that I actually witnessed like ASU making shots yesterday, because this is the same team that put up 13 points in one half to Northwestern, and you were there, so you have seen firsthand how anemic this Arizona State offense is. So I didn't expect them to show up, but you can't really do much, and then if you can't make your shots, it's we've had a lot of those kind of cases. Just a bunch of these kids just can't make their shots this week. So it's just been a tough week. As we start the college basketball season. But we're gonna hope to get really moving. And start winning as we get later into the season. Obviously, especially with conference play, once a lot more systems kind of start blossoming to the blossoming up. But Ari, how did you do yesterday?
Yeah, what a wild game it was between the Nuggets and Warriors last night. It was looking like a really good read for about 3.5 quarters. Nuggets win by 7, I think 6 or 7 in the first half. They outscored by 20 in the third quarter. They're down, it was 123 to 105 with about 7 minutes left. And then the Nuggets go on a 25-4 run in the last 7 minutes. Capped off by Jokic's buzzer beater 3 off the glass. Obviously, the first half, they didn't cover the full game because it was 3.5. So, first half they covered, full game they didn't. Nuggets. But yeah, that kind of encapsulates the Warrior season so far. Was that kind of finish in the fourth quarter, and like I said, maybe their win on Tuesday could have propelled them into a streak, in the new year. But then they blow a 18-point lead in the last 7 minutes, and that doesn't help them obviously. But Nuggets. This is again why I tend to target first half plays, and I have another first half play today. It's just a lot. There's teams that play better in the first half and the second half, and vice versa, and whatnot. And it's just obviously it can go both ways. It can work out first half and not full game. It can not work out first half and work out full game. But I just have had a better more success, let's just say, betting first half some full games.
Yeah. You mentioned the Nuggets game. That was really, really something. Obviously, you mentioned, Nuggets obviously covering that first half, and then obviously, they looking pretty good for 3.5 quarters, and then, the Warriors started to make their comeback, and, they obviously had their lead, and, then obviously the Nuggets came back, and, obviously the Jokic three that gave the Nuggets the win. So just another classic case of what is going on in Golden State. So that's nice to see. Nice to see you. Obviously, you hit the first half as well. We talk about just getting in, getting out of that first half, not having to worry about the full game. So I think it's going to be a great system for you. It just keeps producing some winners for you. So we're going to keep just moving on to today. Obviously, Friday. We don't have a really big card today, obviously, in terms of all the sports. But I'm just going to take something from college basketball that I saw, and I like the Illinois-Purdue game to go over 150.5 points tonight. I think this is going to be a really offensive game. I think, you look at this Purdue offense, and obviously it's one of the better offenses in the country, led by Zach Edey. Obviously inside, the big center, we always see him as one of the bigger threats for this Purdue team. But, sometimes, when Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith can get hot, they can get hot, and, they obviously know how to pass the ball out and, make some key passes. So, and then obviously this Illinois team is not to be slept on as well. I like their offense, pretty much keep up with this Purdue team. I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than a lot of people think. Obviously with this line being kind of small, with this line being so large in Purdue's favor, I actually think it's going to be a lot more competitive just because of the fact that, Illinois' offense, even though it's going to be tested, they're obviously a top 30 offense in the country, scoring 83 points a game. They hit about 50% of their shots. So, they're shooting the ball well, and they're obviously making they're making their shots, and two, they're executing well. So I feel like, in that case, I feel like I'm just going to take the over. They are second in rebounding per game. And then, you have Purdue, who is also a top 30. So, in that kind of case, Illinois, second chance points come off of offensive rebounds. So, that also feeds off of the points. And, Purdue obviously having Edey is a rebounding threat. So I'm just taking this over. I don't really like that large line for Purdue, and I don't know if Illinois can really cover, but I just really like the fact that this game is going to be a high-scoring game and just going over the 150.5 point mark right there. That's minus 125 on DraftKings. That's my only play today. Didn't really like anything else. Obviously, the UConn Butler game, I would take. This is nothing I'm playing official. I would take Butler +5, but that line started at like 6.5 and then dropped down to 4.5, and now it's going back up to 5. And I don't know why that line's creeping back up. In that case, I may want to take UConn, but I don't really have any other leans, especially with no Donovan clinging out for a little while for that UConn team. So I'm just going to stay away from that game, but I'm taking this Illinois-Purdue game to go over 150.5. I think it's just going to be a very fun, high-scoring game. At Purdue. But Ari, you said you have a pick tonight. What have you picked for tonight's slate?
Yeah, it's basically the exact same type of read as yesterday. I took the Nuggets first half minus 1.5 over the Warriors coming off a big win. And now I'm taking the Pacers minus 1.5 first half over the Hawks, who are coming off a big win over the Thunder on Wednesday. The only difference really is that the Nuggets were on the road yesterday and the Pacers are at home today. The Hawks are a better home team than road team, of course. Pacers are pretty solid at home, better than the Hawks on the road. Again, I think I took the Pacers earlier this week. I believe they've kind of found a bit better of a rhythm. They beat the Bucks in their last game, so they hit a bit of a rough patch after the in-season tournament, including Halliburton. Halliburton's back, in his groove, as are the Pacers recently. So just give me the Pacers. Again, 3.5 favorites for the full game, like the Nuggets were yesterday. I'm taking the Pacers to just do their job in the first half and win by at least 2 at halftime.
Yeah, you mentioned the Pacers first half. Going back to that system, just taking them throughout the first half with a very small shaky line like this, and obviously the Pacers one of the better offensive scoring teams we talk about, but defensively they're not really as prolific, but they obviously do lead the league in blocks per game. And then you mentioned this Hawks team, obviously a very offensive team as well. So just taking the Pacers first half, in a very probably competitive and offensive game, just take them to pretty much win the first half, like you said, -2 again, at home. So I do like that system for you. Just 2 plays today. Obviously, the Pacers on the first half spread -1.5 for Ari, and then my pick, the Illinois and Purdue game, to go over 150.5 points. But obviously, we do have this weekend. Obviously, we have some best bets for this weekend slate. For the NFL, the final weekend, as Ari and I talked about, and I have 2 picks. I have only 2 picks just for tomorrow's slate. I will have my full card for Sunday released on Twitter, on our Twitter, AKP Sports Talk. We will have that posted later. But I'm going to talk about these 2 picks for tomorrow's games. First, we're going to go to the first game of the doubleheader. I'm taking the Steelers -3. I think that's about like -125 right now, so that line is growing. I would play up to 3.5 right now. I don't know why it's at even money, but if you want to play it up to 3.5 and get your even money, I don't blame you there. I do think the Steelers do win this game here. I think, obviously this is a must win for the Steelers, and this is, and you don't really look to playoff situations or anything like, or you don't really like to, from terms of betting, you always say, oh, this is a must win. You don't really like to use that in terms of a reasoning, but in these playoff type of situations where it's a winner lose type of situation, you do need to get in to win, and especially against a rival that is sitting absolutely everyone. I know Ari and we've talked about in the group chat, the Baltimore Ravens injury report. Everyone is sitting this week. So, obviously the Ravens are getting ready for the postseason, and the Steelers obviously fighting for the postseason right now. And they obviously are riding off of the momentum of Mason Rudolph. They just came into Seattle and beat the Seahawks on the road. And, they definitely needed to get that win in order to put themselves in this position, in a winner, pretty much winner go home situation. Almost, obviously with all the AFC playoff implications. But, for the Steelers here, with the better team right now, just in terms of who's going to be playing on Sunday, the Steelers are starting their starters. They obviously know this means something in terms of their playoff implications, and they just want to get the win. So I'm taking the -3. I think they get the job done. -3. I would take them up to -3.5. I think they win by 4+. I think it's just going to be, not a I wouldn't say a beatdown, but I think the Steelers do control this game just because it's going to be, one of those games where the Steelers will use the ground game mostly, with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, and how those two have kind of emerged out of the backfield for me. And then, we still get to see, the Rudolph and, Pickens connection, which is emerging really well. Pickens, been the leading receiver for that Steelers team back-to-back weeks. And then, now coming into this final game against the Ravens, I feel like he definitely will have a good game as well. I'm not taking any player props, obviously, just because, there's the incentive motivation that I don't think, really is useful for bettors out there, just because, obviously, the books do obviously know that, oh, this guy needs 4 receptions, might as well juice his line a little bit. So I'm not taking no player props this weekend, so I'm just going to take, games that I like in terms of these kind of positions. And in this spot, the Ravens are resting everyone. The Steelers are starting their starters, obviously, trying to make the playoffs. I'm taking the Steelers -3. And then I'm taking the Texans -122 on the money line on Saturday night. Look, I absolutely hate fading Gardner Minshew, and I love that man so much. And, obviously I'm a Coug, so, there's a lot more of a better connection there. But this is a really bad spot for him. And I think this Texans team, obviously, when I saw this Jaguars team trending in the wrong direction, and we saw the Texans, starting to get some wins under their belt, I knew the Texans were going to win the division. And here they are in a great spot right now. Obviously, they do need a little help from Tennessee, but that may be a play for Sunday. But I think the Texans do get this win on the road, -122. I just think, this is the better team right now, obviously, and not even just for, for the division. This obviously does have also playoff implications for the wild card as well. But, I think the Texans right now, in this spot, I think they are the better team. I think that line was at 1, and, I think it's grown to 1.5. So I'm just going to take the Texans straight up on the money line here. I think they do get the job done, in this spot. Their offense, we talk about how CJ Stroud now fully healthy, off of concussion protocol, and now their offense seems to pretty much go from night and day. Obviously with Case Keenum, their offense really struggled to move down the field. And now with CJ Stroud under the helm, they have a really prolific offense again that really, can go down through the air, especially on the ground as well with, Devin Singletary. But, we've seen the emergence of, obviously before you got injured, but Tank Dell. And then, obviously we've seen, key contributors, guys like Robert Woods. We've seen Noah Brown, be a huge key factor for this Texans offense in times. But I'm just taking the Texans with their offense to win. In this spot, obviously we talk about the Colts and their pass rush being one of the key things defensively keeping them in this game. But a weaker secondary, I think TJ Stroud in this primetime spot, picks and dices throughout that secondary, and gets the job done in this big game. So I'm just taking the Texans to win on Saturday night in the doubleheader to part 2, and then the Steelers to get the job done -3 on the road in Baltimore in the first part of the doubleheader in the NFL games on Saturday. Ari, I know you've probably cooked up some NFL best bets for this weekend. What have you cooked up?
Yeah, I have one for both day. I'm on the Texans as well. Like you said, the line's moving in their favor. They have the better offense. The defenses, I feel like, are pretty comparable, but, it really just comes down to Stroud and what he can bring, now being healthy after returning last week from the concussion protocol. So like the Texans, like you said, the winner is going to get a wild card spot, and they can get to the division if the Jaguars lose on Sunday. So obviously a lot to play for both teams. I like the Texans in that one. And then I think this is my third straight week, if I'm not mistaken, taking the Eagles over. I think it was Eagles-Giants 2 weeks ago, Eagles-Cardinals last week, and again, Eagles-Giants this week. I think the line when I took the Eagles-Giants over 2 weeks ago was about the same, give or take a point or two, and it started over. It was 58 total points in that one. And, the Eagles defense, until I see something different, from them, I'm just going to keep taking their overs. Tyrod Taylor has at least made the Giants offense a little bit more competent. Last week they almost beat the Rams last week, scored 25 points against what I think is probably right now a better Rams defense than the Eagles defense right now. So I think this can be another game where it's kind of, low 30s, high 20s, somewhere in that range. And this game can easily go into the 50s, I think. So I'll take over 42 in that game.
I mean, we already talked about the Texans' money line. You mentioned CJ Stroud kind of being the X factor in the spot. You mentioned the line going in the Texans' favor. We just like the Texans just get the job done. I like that as well. And you mentioned the Eagles and Giants. This Eagles team, their defense obviously got exposed last week. Obviously, maybe that's more of due, obviously, Jonathan Gannon maybe knowing that Eagles defense a little more. Obviously, leaving from Philadelphia to become the head coach of Arizona, so maybe a little bit of that. But obviously, you mentioned the Eagles defense in recent weeks has not. Well, just pretty much throughout the season, obviously their secondary has been one of the weaker, if not the weakest secondary in the country in the NFL. And against the Giants team, obviously that has nothing to play for, but at the same time, obviously would love to play spoiler against this Eagles team. We saw how so close this Giants team was last week. Against the Rams, it was a missed field goal away from potentially knocking the Rams down down the totem pole, and maybe them not clinching a playoff spot. But obviously they did get the win. And then you mentioned obviously we saw how Tyrod Taylor was playing, and that secondary for the Rams was getting a little exposed. And I think this is a great spot for the Giants offense to really do damage against an Eagles secondary that has one of the worst in the league. So I like that over as well at over 42. I also was thinking of taking the Giants to cover the spread, but I like the Eagles-Giants game to go over 42. Those are our best bets so far for this weekend. Obviously, such a loaded weekend. Obviously, you can find all these plays and more on AKP Sports Talk. That is our Twitter. You can find our cards for tonight's action, obviously, and then obviously our cards for tomorrow. We have the Texans money line, and I have the Steelers, and I will be also posting some college basketball plays. And then Sunday, obviously, we have our cards for the full NFL slate. But that is going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. That is Ari. I'm Korea. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you guys Monday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you guys on Monday.